Growing outrage in Minneapolis, protesters clashing with officers in the streets over the death of a black man in police custody.
Nationwide, from Chicago to New York to Denver, there's mounting outrage over the death of 46-year-old George Floyd.
What's his name? George Floyd! What's his name?
Right after the death of George Floyd, I came across her Instagram account, which had largely been inactive, and she had started posting these black squares with just the names of people who had been murdered by the police with their birth dates and death dates. I noticed that she was going back in time as well and really creating a digital memorial for all of those who had been killed by the police. It was interesting to see Instagram being used as a platform for memorializing. This platform of Instagram was a very interesting, permanent yet also somewhat temporary medium, because you scroll through and it's there one day and you don't see it the next, or maybe you miss it entirely. So it felt like very much resonated with what I was looking at in terms of cemeteries and stone memorials. So I think it's therapeutic in many different ways, and I think Dr. Ater would agree with that. For some people, it's an interruption in the day. You're looking through pictures of, friends and families and pets and silly events, and then you come across one of these black squares with somebody's name on it, and it causes you to pause, even if it's just for a second. You're taken aback by it because it's in such contrast to everything else you see on social media. For her, putting these posts together was a grieving process, and she hadn't really thought of it as a monument or as a cemetery or something evoking that. For her, as she explained it, it was more of a way for her to work through these traumas. She had also experienced some loss that year, and then the murder of George Floyd was kind of the icing on the cake for her, as far as I understand it. For people who aren't expecting it, it causes you to remember that there was a life there and there was a life lost. And maybe it, helps you to say, oh, I want to research that person and learn more about them. And in that way, it can be both educational and therapeutic in terms of causing you to pay attention to what's going on in terms of police brutality. But I think, for people who are already quite aware of what's going on, I think following it is a way of keeping track of what's happening. And people have their own practices with it. Dr. Ater has a very specific practice for how she posts people's names, and for her, that's very deeply personal. So I think, it really is on a case-by-case basis how you choose to process the memorial. So the mission of CRDS is really to, radicalize death studies. And we take that to mean like a decolonial practice and approach to death studies, which has typically been focused on American deathways, American cemeteries, and specifically the death of white people and how white people process death. So we come at death studies really from the position of how have the racially, ethnically, socioeconomically marginalized experienced death in different ways, and how have they not been given attention in the past. Dr. Ater's memorial fit into this in a different way than I think we've had other blogs approach the subject of marginal death, in that it's something that's very present. It's something that we're dealing with, unfortunately, almost every week, if not more often. There's no material aspect to it. We're not talking about a specific corpse. We're not talking about a funeral. We're not talking about a cemetery, but we're talking about still how the lives of people have been commemorated in a very different way. So I think it fits into the mission, not only in thinking about how Black and brown folks murdered by the police can be remembered and commemorated, but also what is an alternative way of memorializing in general. It's not just a stone monument. It's not just a plaque. It can also be social media, which is a very public facing